Okie dokie. We are going to do the next 4 examples in the notes, and then we will do 2, and then we'll do the last one. And so let's go ahead and get started. We want to inscribe an equilateral triangle. So the first thing we need to do is to draw an equilateral triangle. And so here is my base, AB. And inscribe means that my circle goes inside the triangle. So I'm going to measure AB. And I don't know if you've noticed how many times we've used equilateral triangles. They are very important. So you need to make sure that you can draw an equilateral triangle. Next, we're going to connect our third side. And so there's our equilateral triangle. Now the incenter is the intersection of the what? Angle bisectors or perpendicular bisectors? It's the angle bisectors. So we need to bisect the angles of our triangle. So I'm going to use my compass, and I'm going to make a kind of a small dummy arc, because remember, I'm going to have a dummy arc and then a dummy arc off of it. And so I want to make it small enough that I can get all 3 angle bisectors within my circle. Now, I find it a lot easier to twist my paper. And so right there will be my first angle bisector. Now typically when I'm doing this, I do all the angles and all of them at, so I do all the first dummy arcs and then all the second dummy arcs. But I'm going to try to do it by angle. So here's the ones around C. And I'm kind of doing it a little differently than I normally do. Not that you would notice, just because with the camera I don't have as much room. So there's my second angle bisector through C. Okay, and now that is enough to get me my incenter, but I'm going to go ahead and do B just to make sure that it hits at the same spot. The more I do, the more correct, or the closer to the actual incenter I will have. And so if I line up, you notice that they come in pretty close to hitting all at the same point, not quite. Now, the one thing about this is that by doing all 3, remember, this is equilateral. So this is not only the angle bisector, but it's also the perpendicular bisector. But that's only because it is an equilateral triangle. And because of that, I can measure from here to find my circle and draw my circle. Now, I told you at one point that I would draw a circle and show you how I draw them, and so this is how I draw them. Notice I'm holding my compass close to the paper, close to the point, and I'm turning my paper. I am not turning my compass. My hand has not moved. Okay? Makes it a lot better, a lot easier to do. Now, if you notice right here, if you notice down here that it's close, but it's not quite right, that is okay. You're going to have errors when you do this because this is not an exact science. Okay? So it's okay as long as it looks correct. Now, if you're doing this question on a test, let me warn you that you have to have all of these arc marks. On your homework to get credit, you have to have all of these arc marks. If you do not, I will not give you credit. Okay? Now, let's move to the next one. We want to inscribe the square. So that means, again, we need angle bisectors. But remember that the diagonals are angle bisectors, and that the radius has to be perpendicular to its line tangent. So the first thing we need to do is find the diagonals of the square. Well, that's real easy. We just draw them in. And the middle, where they intersect, is going to be, that right there is our in-center. Now, I could do the angle bisectors the way I did in the last question, but it's easier to realize that this is a square. So these, when I draw the diagonal, I get an angle bisector. The next thing I need to do is I need to find where the radius is. Now, I could just go here, but it needs to be perpendicular. So I'm going to draw a perpendicular bisector to one side of my square, and that will give me, ooh, good, I made it small. That will give me where my perpendicular is. So my perpendicular is going to be right there. Right there. Now, I don't have to draw the whole line. All I really care is where that midpoint is. Okay? So that's all I need to draw. So this is my midpoint of the diagonals, and this is my point, my midpoint of the sides. Take my compass, measure from M to P, and again, I turn my paper, and I'm having to move it so that I can get it all the way around because I have stuff in my way, like the camera. So I turn my paper, and that's how I do my circle. And you can notice, if you look closely, it's not real close here. There's a little gap, and here it's a little overlap. But it's close, and that's good. Now again, for these, you're going to want to do your steps. So your first step would be your reasoning of why drawing your diagonals. All right, next, number 23, circumscribe the hexagon. So circumscribe means that I want the circle that goes around the hexagon. And so remember that the circumcenter is the intersection of the perpendicular bisectors. So I'm going to find the perpendicular bisectors of the sides. So let me label my sides just so that you can see which ones I'm talking about. It'll come in easier. Okay? So I want perpendicular bisectors of all the sides. And we have to have room to do this. So I'm going to start at A, and so I want to go a little bit bigger than halfway. Now, here's the trick. The trick is that you want to draw almost complete circles around each vertex. Okay, so there's 3. 4. Yikes! Sorry about that, guys. The camera fell off the mount. Okay, let's pick up where we were. We were having technical difficulties. We're at E and F. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I have more than one sheet under this, and I have more than just the assignment, so I need to go back to E. Because notice it didn't go all the way, so I need to go back to E to make sure it goes all the way. I have more than one page under this just so that it makes it easier on twisting. If you do it with just one sheet, then I have found that my compass moves too much. I don't get as much control. So the diagonal or the perpendicular bisector between A and B lines up all the way across the figure. So it is right there. Okay. Now I'm going to connect this outer dot and this outer dot. If what you really should do is connect, you should draw this perpendicular bisector and this perpendicular bisector, but I have found that it gives me too much error. So I'm going to connect the outer dots. But what you would typically do is you would draw this one, you would draw this perpendicular bisector and then this perpendicular bisector, and you notice that they intersected pretty far apart. So that is why I have learned that to draw the outer dot, and I drew that a little heavier just so that I could see with all the other lines. And so now I'm going to do this one. Okay, and so that is my in-center. This is my circumcenter. That's the circumcenter. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my circumcenter and I'm going to measure it to a vertex. Now I am picking A for a reason, and that comes from years of doing this. And that if I pick F, I'm going to have issues. But if I pick A or D, it's going to be better. So I'm going to pick A, and now I'm going to draw my circle, and again, I'm going to move my paper. Okay? And you can see, again, if you notice, it didn't go all the way. Okay, so let's say what happens if we were, I'm going to take a different one, take a different compass, and I'm going to pick F, and I'm going to show you, if I can get it there. So here's F. Okay, notice that with the F one that I have issues at C again, and I have issues at D. It doesn't even go to it. It's supposed to go to the outside of the hexagon. Now, let me say this. If you take your hexagon and you say, okay, she wants me to circumscribe it, and you do this, and you say, okay, now I've circumscribed it by hand, and that red circle is all you give me, then guess how many points you'll get? Okay? You have to have your compass marks. You have to have your perpendicular bisectors. Okay? Now, I'm going to move on to 24. 24 is to bisect this line segment into 3 equal parts. Now, you could bisect it into 4 equal parts. You could bisect it into 5 equal parts. This is one of the harder things that you have to do. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to pick, now I'm going to try to label them here. This is A and this is B. And so I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to put C up here. That is the line AC. You want to draw a dummy arc. And I have one of these that is almost out of lead. That the lead wasn't working right. I think that's it. Okay. You want to draw a dummy arc around A. Okay. And so there's your dummy arc. And I'm going to call this point right here A1. I'm going to go to A1 and I'm going to draw another dummy arc, and I'm going to call that A2. I'm going to go to A2 and I'm going to draw a third dummy arc, and that will be A3. Now I'm going to move to B, and I'm going to just draw a dummy arc. Okay, I'll need it in a minute. Now, if you only have one compass, which most of you will, then you'll have to do different measurements. Because I have more than one, I'm going to set this compass aside, leave it there where you can see it, and I have another compass that I'm going to use now. The next thing you're going to do is you want to connect A3 to B. Now I'm going to measure with my second compass. I'm going to measure A3 to B. I'm going to move to A2 and I'm going to make an arc. That gives me a point. I'm going to move to A1 and I'm going to make an arc. Now I'm making this arc kind of big because I'm going to need it kind of big. And I'm going to keep that. I'm going to set that compass aside. Now I'm going to go back to my first one that has the dummy arc. So if you had to use your one compass, then you would go back and measure this dummy arc. Go to where that intersection was. This is B1 now. Go to where that intersection was at B1 and draw a dummy arc. And so this is B2. Okay. Now if I connect B1 to A2 and B2 to A1, I have 1, 2, 3 equal parts. Okay? You will want to do this over and over and over again because you will have one of these on your take home and you will probably have one of these on your final. This is a very common question. Now, if you don't have me as a teacher, I will just say that you may not have this, but it has been on the last few years, it has been repeatedly on those tests. Okay, and we're going to stop right there. And I'm going to stop right there. That gives us another 15-minute lecture, and then I will record the next 2 examples in the next video. Thank you.